What would attract amphibians like frogs and toads to our youth garden?
So we could create a little hibernacula, which is a rock and stone and log pile for the frogs and toads to live in over the winter. We could let some patches of grass grow really long so that the frogs and toads have somewhere to forage for slugs and snails. And we could create a little mini pond or bog garden area so that there is more space for them in the youth hub garden.
What plants would attract more animals to the garden, such as bees, birds, butterflies, or even bats?
So we could plant some herbs like lavender and sage and chives and rosemary. They're always really good for the pollinators. We could also put in a native tree such as rowan or hawthorn, which have really good flowers for the bees in the spring, and then they create some lovely berries for the birds to eat in the autumn. And we could also plant in some teasels, which have a lovely purple spiky flower that the bees really enjoy.
What could we do to keep the garden tidy and stop people littering, not just in the youth garden but the community as a whole?
So we could do some litter picks in the garden. We could make some signs and put them up all around to help the community know that it's a safe space and we don't want litter there. Or we could maybe build some bins and take responsibility for clearing them out and keeping them tidy every week.
We builded animals' homes such as bat box and put them in the garden. Would we steal them away or would they come back to the garden?
So the youth garden's quite quiet usually anyway, so a lot of birds would be able to nest in bird boxes if we put them up. Bat boxes might need a bit more of a quiet space, but it's worth putting one up anyway to show other people what they can do for wildlife in their own spaces. And we could also put up some solitary bee houses as well, which would be really good for solitary bees, and we wouldn't really disturb them at all.
So in the raised beds, we're hoping to grow things like carrots, potatoes. We might even have a polytunnel, small polytunnel for tomatoes and courgettes as well. Things that the kids can barbecue and use and eat. So we've already got some herbs already cut out, ready to go in the wooden planting fencing. Things like sage, we've got marjoram and thyme. We're also going to bring in some rosemary and some basil as well. So again, things that we can use when flavouring like our chicken or whatever meats they're making on the barbecue area, just to kind of add a bit of flavour for them. Maybe things like marigolds, fuchsias and geraniums and things like that. They'll do well in like the hot weather, but probably veg growing in the planters would be better. In the raised beds that are going to go alongside the bench area, we might have some more lavender, marigolds and things like that that will be good for the bees and the butterflies to come into. The raised beds that are going to be a little bit more narrow, you might want some longer veg that will root in them. So things like carrots would do well. Potatoes would definitely do well because you can put in the potato tubers further down and then you'll get more kind of growing up. So yeah, they would work well. For the raised beds with the trellis, which will act as a bit of a windbreaker, we're going to have things like clematis and honeysuckle, maybe even sweet peas growing up, which again attract more butterflies and things like that. But they've got a sweet smelling scent as well, so they'll work quite well climbing up the trellis. Currently there's herbs growing in one of the raised beds and the young people have suggested growing a tree there. What we would potentially do is have another row of sleepers just to add in more soil, purely because the tree roots would grow quite far down, but a lot of the ground underneath is compacted. So if we have them raised up a little bit higher, we could grow something like a rowan tree or a cherry tree there. It wouldn't fully establish, but it would still root and take hold.